going, man? It's good to be on here.
It is a long time coming, my man. This has been in the works for probably about a couple months, just thinking about it, probably over a couple years talking about it.
Oh,
But
yeah, for sure.
it's here.
And maybe throwing it out there and seeing if anybody wants to listen to a couple guys like us chew stuff up and see what happens.
Well, I know of at least 5 listeners. I got 4 family members and 2 boys, so that's 6.
Well, I
So
would
hopefully
say
we
I
can.
could guarantee a couple, but I can't even guarantee that. So I don't bring much to the table in terms of listenership, probably.
We need all of Riley's A&M buddies.
That's right. That's right. Maybe we can get in on the be the cool kids, on the college podcast.
Yeah, I've never been the cool kid, so I don't know.
No, me either. But hey, there's a first time for everything, right? Like, what a better time to start.
Hey, that beard's looking good, man.
Hey, you as well. Right back at you. Looking at them, I think yours is distinguished. You've got kind of it looks very, very distinguished on the. Mine's more of a kind of a salt and pepper mix. I'm kind of roning out a little bit in my old age, where you've almost kind of got like a blaze going there.
Well, I paint my beard. So
nice.
I paint it, and I tried to look really nice and kind of
put
that skunk streak in there. So
I was going to say you're kind of a skunk-headed deal, I guess.
I am.
Hey, that's okay. That's all right.
Well, for those of you guys that are curious about who we are, my name's Matt McCrory. I am a ag teacher in Troy, Missouri, and have been for roughly 19 years, and 20 years as how many years I've been an ag teacher. And a few years ago, I started black and gold swine genetics with my best friend, my father, and we've raised a few good ones. Probably the highlight of our career was raising a boar called Change Up that you got to show with Briley that brought good money at Summertime Conference, a Berkshire board that's now at Shipley Swine Genetics and some things. But at the same time, like I've always had a love and passion for livestock, and we'll talk about that and kind of the story of that throughout the next few months. But I have a really good friend that always rooted me on, and that's my partner and what I call my heterosexual life mate, Brian Williams, and
that's a pretty
Brian,
esteemed title.
It is, and let me say again, heterosexual life mate. So,
jot that down, everyone. Jot that down for future.
Yes. Well, anyway, Brian and I taught ag, and we always saw each other at state convention, and we really appreciate how much each other knew livestock and valued teaching kids, and we just enjoyed seeing each other every single year. And then at the state fair, we'd root each other on and things like that. And tell you what, I knew he was a true friend when, after our first win at state level and stuff like that, he called me up and said, "Buddy, I'm happy for you." And I tell you what, when you have a circle of friends that when you win and you're truly happy for everybody, that's really cool. Brian's the star of the show, everybody. I want him to.
And we're in trouble. Our apologies again.
You can just call me Coattails. So, Brian, how did your journey of livestock production, judging, and things, how'd that come about, my friend?
Oh man, we need 2 or 3 episodes for all the excitement and I would say trials and tribulations that have gone along. Most of them pretty comical if you're not directly involved on my livestock journey. And like Matt said, I'm Brian Williams, and I was a teacher for 23 years here in Princeton, Missouri, little bitty town right up on the Iowa line, and we have kind of jumped over into a different. Not totally unrelated, but different endeavor now. And we own a company called judgingpro.com. And if you find us on social media or subscribe to the site, hey, check that deal out. And so, like Matt said, I had retired, but as an ag teacher, we were very livestock and what I would call animal science focused as a chapter and as a group, and had a tremendous amount of fun working with kids and kind of imparting, or hopefully imparting, some of the, just fun and passion that I had for that industry over to a few kids, and man, it was such a fun journey.
Well, hey, well, we named it Beards and Banners because we're good friends and have been for many, many years. And we've always talked livestock. But at the same time, like we want to talk about how to make good ones, how to
Mm.
care for good ones, and talk about all four species, and hopefully make a lot of friends in the process. I think it could be a really really good beginning. We named it Beards and Banners because Dumb and Dumber had already been used.
That's correct. Yeah, it is getting close to Halloween here. We should have at
Well,
least sported the tuxedos.
yeah,
For
if
those
this
of
goes
you
a year,
kids who
we're gonna
are
make that happen.
maybe in our college listening age, Dumb and Dumber's a movie that old guys like us actually went to see in the movie theater. That was, dare I say, life changing. Perhaps it was quotable, and essentially it was memes before memes were a thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think they're still being used.
All right, Matt. This is an odd topic. Some might even say it's off topic. So, what's our off topic tonight? Well, it's what you watching. We can't be in the livestock barn all the time, and I've been to a few barns where they got TVs in the barn when they're lambing or pigging or calving. Everybody seems to like streaming movies and shows. What are you watching?
I tell you what, I am a streamer. I love to binge watch. I love to sit down and waste a evening, and sometimes that's the only way I can wind down. And I can
Mm-hmm.
be dead tired. I can start a show at 8, and then all of a sudden it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, what am I doing? I gotta get some sleep. But this week, man, I stumbled upon a movie that I have to say I'm a dumb comedy fan,
Oh,
and
me too.
Seth Rogen gets me every once in a while. And I watched a movie called The Long
The
Shot.
Long Shot. I've seen it.
It
It's a good one.
it is so funny, and I
So
tell you
good.
what, yeah, I don't know if you root for him because he's got a beard and he's funny and kind of
He
an
is kind of
underdog,
part of the Beard Crew.
kind of
It's
an
the
underdog like us, I think.
Yeah.
So, but man, it was so hilarious. Like I giggled through the whole thing. I laughed. It was so funny. And I basic gist of it is like this guy is a kind of a writer for different magazines or different newspapers and
Mhm.
different things like this. And this girl's the Secretary of State, and she's looking for a speechwriter.
And
She sees him.
she eventually is gonna run for president, right?
She is. She's running for
Yeah.
president, and she really pulls high and rates well on all these things, but her sense of humor isn't very high. Well, Seth Rogen, his sense of humor is a lot like you and I, man.
And
Like
a unique
doesn't,
laugh. Like the
he
dude has a
does.
unique laugh.
And anyway, they knew each other in high school, and he was always a big fan of her and rooted her on. And he went to go work for her, and maybe a love interest kind of happened throughout the movie and stuff like this. But it was one it was a feel good comedy. It was so funny. It was worth my time. It was so worth my time. I even watched it last night. It was
Nice.
great. It was good.
Nice.
So
It's a good one. It's a funny one. I've seen it. It's that one is one of those that it's a nice break from reality. Just
absolutely.
kind of hang out, get a few cheap laughs. It's a pretty good one. And those guys are awesome in it. They're fun to watch.
Since this podcast is about livestock, one of my favorite things to talk about with you is some good ones and some good ones that you've
Mm.
seen.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's go on ahead and talk about a little segment called "Who's Your Daddy?"
Who's your daddy? Heck
Okay,
yeah.
so the thought process behind this is like you say, man, when we're at a backdrop after we are judging a show or something, we always ask the question, what's this out of?
That's
Right?
right.
It never
Every time.
fails.
Every
What's
time.
this out of? Where'd it come from? Man, that's a good one.
Yep.
Congratulations. Let's start out by talking about some good sires that you've seen some really good
Oh
ones in the
man.
backdrop.
Oh man. And you said it 100%. Like if I'm out sorting a show, eventually you hit the backdrop and take some pictures and you're just wanting to visit a little bit, as you've kind of sorted through and you've seen a lot of, a lot of livestock over the course of the show, or certainly sometimes some variety in animals. Man, my favorite thing to do when those things get to the backdrop, and obviously they're the ones that I liked, hey, what's this one out of? Where'd he come from? What do you? And then I usually kind of followed up with, what's the end game for this guy or this heifer or this,
Yeah,
whatever, where's your target for this one? And I'm always intrigued, I guess, and by what are those things out of, especially as you and I are trying to raise a few hogs, and so especially in the hog backdrops, man, I'm always interested to know, if one's grabbed my attention, what's the genetics on that thing, what's the pedigree,
absolutely.
and I love the answers, and I'll tell you, I get a chuckle because you know almost always, not always, but almost always, that's always met with a question. Well, hold on. I need to ask
Let
my
me
dad.
ask my
Or, hey,
dad.
let me ask real quick. I don't know what this one is.
But the best part about that is then dad's like, hell, I don't know.
Yeah,
Then
I
let
don't.
me
I don't.
ask
But
mom.
yeah,
So then mom has to look it up on her
on
phone.
the
And then
phone.
all of a
Yep.
sudden, then she's got it. And then
Most all the
but
time you get an answer. But
yeah,
it's a variety of things, and I like I said, it's fun. And the other thing is that I think is fun is that being at the age you and I are at, we've got to see some trends move through
for
some of
sure.
the different species for sure, and it's neat to see year from year, especially probably in the hog side of the world, maybe as much as any, because the generational interval is so much quicker, and it seems like those boars have a shorter shelf life, in terms of popularity, how it progresses, and one summer, I know that everything that I sorted that I liked that I was using um, was a dirty secret or a dirty secret derivative.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you go to the backdrop now, um, that's a name you don't hear much of. Now, probably they've got it in their pedigree a couple
For
generations
sure. For
back,
sure.
like almost everything does. I would say the number one hog, when I'd say, hey, what's this one? What's he out of? Tricked out. Like almost always. And obviously that one throws a lot of good ones. That one's sought after. We've cloned him, and the clones are in high demand. We bred a gilt or two that way. And so I think that if I had to put my finger on one in terms of pretty contemporary and what I've heard, it'd certainly be tricked out, probably.
I agree. And I think that one has made some good ones. One of our best show gilts we've ever had was a tricked out. And
Yep.
we sold her as a bred gilt. And boy, I probably kicking myself right now for letting that one go. But feed bills gotta get paid sometimes. I mean, there's so many, and we're gonna go into a lot of these later on. And every week we're gonna feature some. And I sometimes we're just gonna feature some breeds, and sometimes we're gonna feature just some crosses. But when I'm thinking about mine and just a recent thing that I've done, and there was a Believe in Me guilt a few
Mm.
years ago that, my gosh, Emma Sims had that sucker. And I watched it throughout the summer. And my gosh, it was just so impressive. Big legged, stout hip, just so good looking and impressive. She bounced upright, but she was just she was just an outlier in so many areas. I think this has hit me about 3 or 4 times. I said, what's that one out of? And they were Believe in Me, or a son out of Believe in Me,
Hmm.
that I think it speaks a lot about him. So
Yeah.
but I guess we used two premium blend boards just now, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess shout out to Premium Blend, I guess.
Hey,
And
good for you guys.
good for those
Keep up the
guys,
good work. All
Um,
right, let's transition to steers a little bit, and
oh yeah.
what you think right there. And we talked about all species a little bit. What's some steers that have been sired by some good ones, and who's a lot of their daddies that you've been seeing?
I think the window's smaller, probably, in terms of what you hear. And man, I hear a lot of um there's a lot of In God We Trust steers out there. Um and it seems like those are the ones that, here again, like when I go to the backdrop, seems like those are some that for whatever reason I get kind of drawn into those type of cattle. And so that's the one, probably, I guess, in my mind, that sticks out the most in terms of over the past year or so. um you know when I ask a kid, what's this one, what's he out of, where did this one come from, a lot of those calves are In God We Trust, it seems like.
Yeah,
Now,
that's what I'm seeing a lot too. I
you
am.
you rewind that, and same thing like we talked about in the hogs. You back that up 5 years, 6 years, what, maybe 10 years ago, probably the number one answer would have been monopoly.
That's what I was thinking, my man. And I'm going to tell you right now that, boy, Monopoly Cattle, he stamps them so good.
Oh my
Those clones
gosh.
do such a good job right
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
And one of my favorite sires of all time that I always looked at was Dakota Gold.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Dakota Gold is a Monopoly son as well,
Yeah.
TH free. And I tell you what, there's a two heifers that I can remember judging a few years back that, man, they were just so good, and they were monster legged, big boned, big bodied, so stout hip, big topped, and still feminine enough. And they got around the room arena really well. And I tell you what, like after it was over with, I used that one to win. And it still is in my mind today. I would say if you're breeding that one for steers, you're probably going to get 1450 before that one's handling qualities are where it needs to be, probably to win a big show. But I tell you what, angles were right. Really, really stout, functional type of cows. And Hio Silver, man, that thing. I've seen some
Unique,
really good ones out of those too.
cool
I
looking,
really, really do.
regardless of sire, is we've done a pretty good job of on that steer deal. I think fixing some things that 2 or 3 years ago maybe we struggled with and saw more of. I think they're better. I think, and you hit on it right there. I think joint angles are better. I think those calves get around and sit down on their pasturing better. I think just in terms of basic build, we've made that skeleton a little better handling the kind of mass and product and dimension that we're wanting to put on those cattle.
Well, you
And
know me, I'm a skeleton fiend. A popping pasture steer never suits me well. And I think sometimes we gotta rein that in a little bit. I think when you're using one thing to blanket cover everything and breeding that same sire to 50, 60, 70 head, it's not always going to work. And
right,
that's what
exactly.
and I get it. I get why they do it. And I'm breeding some gilts right now to go for a home run. And I get it.
We're right in the thick of club calf season, in
Oh
terms of
yeah. And there's
buying
some
side
good
of
ones
things.
out
And
there, aren't there? My
man, have you
gosh.
been looking at it, some of those
Oh
sales?
yeah.
And, I'm just amazed at the quality of those calves. And it's not just, obviously, we're in an era where presentation's everything and all those calves are incredibly presented. But man, just the build and to me, what I read is on the better end of those calves, the longevity and the feedability of those calves has just come a long way in the past, let's say 10 years. Even on the county fair level, on the top end, those really good kind of elite cattle at whatever level we're making them elite kind of put some neat things together. It's kind of a fun time to be sorting those things.
Oh,
And
I
I would
agree.
imagine looking at how some of them sales end up might be kind of a fun time to be raising them too.
I would say. Remember the
Yeah.
problems we had 5, 6 years ago?
Oh
Just
yeah.
big coarse fronted
Kind of
bulldog
bowed,
steers.
get out at
Yeah,
their elbow and kind of come over at their
yeah,
knee. By the
yeah.
time those
Especially
calves
when they
got to
got
where
to
they,
1,400
yeah,
pounds or
yeah,
1,300 pounds. I mean,
yeah,
they were just kind of train wreck sometimes.
yeah.
I think that's gotten better as you sort shows now. You don't see that as much. More of a more of a rear leg skeleton kind of a deal, popping pasterns. And realistically, I think I was very critical about 5 years ago, 3 years ago. We have to fix that as an industry. And I have seen less and less of those
Mm-hmm.
out lately. And I commend a lot of breeders for, fixing that. And I think part of that goes with feed and how you take those
Oh
steers
yeah,
too. But
yeah,
but
yeah.
I think people are transitioning and getting better at that every day. So
Oh man, and at some point, I know you and I are gonna. It's gonna circle around to feeding livestock and feeding show animals, and that's certainly going to be a big part of the things we talk about here. And as we get to going, and as we move further into episodes, it's going to be fun to field some questions and have people reach out because that's I guess like you and I talked about. I can tell you that you know we're going to approach this thing pretty no filter. And if you've got a question and you want it answered, we're going to give you our best answer. There's no one product out there that's a fix all catch all, and I think that's what part of what people were understanding too is, man, I can buy this one. He's not, as a 600 pounder, he's so cool, he's so stout, he's whatever he is, and I think I can throw enough joint solution in him that he will,
yeah,
that pop in his passions, that's going to get better when he gets bigger.
Oh yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Skeleton does not improve when you add more mass and weight. Funny
Well,
how that
guys,
works.
I'm 42 years old and my skeleton is not getting any better. It
I
is
can tell
not.
you, I it's just funny that the more maturity you add to him, the more weight you add to a skeleton. Surprisingly, those problems don't get less apparent, and
Yep.
there's probably by and large just not a whole lot of feed bucket remedies
Yep.
for those type of problems, and it's probably a lot easier fixed genetically and just stopping that before it starts.
Yep. Well, hey, speaking of genetic line, that sheep industry, that's pretty darn good. And
Oh man, that sheep deal right now, I will
it's
tell you,
good, isn't it? It's
it's
so
lights
tough.
out. It's lights out. Like, and we've fed a sheep or two, and I can tell you 100% that any knowledge or advantage that I may have had, it's far surpassed me. Um, when I look across out at some of those drives and some of those breeders, and I'll be careful not to name a lot of names because I don't want to leave anybody out because there's so many good ones right now. But you certainly named one firm there that's just got it dialed in, and there's so many good sheep breeders, and the quality and consistency, and maybe that's the big thing, is those
Mhm.
sheep guys, they're certainly swinging to hit a home run, like we all are probably, but it just seems like they can do it in such much more quantity and much more consistency. I've had the chance to go walk around and walk through some of those sheep barns in the past few years, Middlesworth's, Hills, some of that kind of stuff. And I just actually had that conversation with a guy today that raises a few sheep, and there are so many good ones. You can't just write down tag numbers because
Yeah.
there's so many good ones by the end of the day. There's so many of those things, regardless of what one of those breeders you go to, that are so good that, man, if you can go in there and look at 400 of them, and there's three of them that these are the ones, my hat's off to you, because in my mind they're all so good. And now I
So
can
who's
tell
your
you,
daddy of the sheep deal right
oh
now, my
man, in the
man?
sheep deal right now, gosh, that'd be a tough one. That'd be a tough one. And I'll tell you what I see, the top end of a county fair, the top end of a jackpot, the top end of a state fair. And certainly when you get to like those division drives in Kansas City, that overall drive, and if you had a chance to watch it, oh man, awesome. If you didn't
Oh
have a
yeah.
chance to watch it, get
Go
on
along
there,
right
go
now,
back
buddy. It
and
is good
watch that
stuff, isn't it?
overall drive at Kansas City. I thought it was phenomenal. Thought it was awesome. My hat's off to Kansas City, and we've got a little bit of a dog in that fight anyway. And so, I'm that one's our hometown show. It's close to us. It means a tremendous amount to all of us, and as Missourians, but especially as a family, that's one that we really really like. And but here's what I'll tell you: if you look at that overall sheep drive at Kansas City and you took the showman off of them and you just turned those lambs loose in a pen, just turn them loose out there, it would take a way better evaluator than me to sort that thing, because they are so good and so similar in how they assemble their skeleton, so similar in how they drape the muscularity that they have over the entirety of that skeleton, so similar in terms of how they're built, their joints, the preparation, the fat distribution. I mean, it's just, man, it's almost cookie cuttered in terms of that sheep deal. And to find one that is really unique, and by no means am I not saying that they're not unique and they're not good, but to find one that just jumps out at you, I think is as hard right now in the sheep deals maybe it's ever been on
I
the top
agree.
end.
I agree. Well, anytime I am around something that really stands out, I kind of ask about lineage or whatever it is, and
Yeah, yeah,
it seems like bullseye really pops up a lot from
yep.
my type. And from what I tell you what, my favorite all time podcast of all time was when Schroyer was talking about his finding bullseye and things
Yeah.
like that. And I just such a cool story, such a unique, find and the way that came about. And boy, but there are some good ones, and I look forward to really digging in a lot
Oh
later
yeah.
on. Just because what we want to do is we want to just promote some, but also at the same time is, man, just find some. Hey, this one came across my social media account the other day. Did you see this one? Wow. So
Yeah.
I think it's kind of exciting what's out there right now. And I think we're at a pinnacle right now as
Oh,
far as it is such a fun time to be around good
oh,
livestock. And it's so
man, can I
good.
get on my soapbox for a minute? I gotta say something that
Stand up, buddy.
that I tell every kid, young adult, 25 and under, and certainly the kids that I work with on a daily basis. And if I'm doing something at Kansas City at the American Royal and I'm working with some of those college kids, the very first thing I tell them is they need to kind of commit to memory how good these things are and how lucky they are to be growing up and developing as evaluators and as stockmen right now. Because I just think I can tell you, bar none, hands down, livestock across species is as good as I've ever seen it in my lifetime. Uh, I can tell you when I was 20 and I was judging in college, livestock did not look like it looks
Oh
today.
my gosh. It
And
didn't.
there was times if you had to go sort, this is also going to upset some old school hog guys. My apologies ahead of time. Hogs were not fun to sort. They did not look like they look today. Sheep were not fun to sort. They did not look like they look today.
Hey,
Um,
size them up, buddy.
buddy, I'll tell you,
Yeah.
and you'll remember it, but man, there was a time that sheep deal was dominated by natural sheep
Mm-hmm.
who were as suck gutted,
Yep.
as
Tubes,
extreme,
buddy.
as frail, as hard feeding, non growing, bad skeletoned.
But they
It,
were lean, weren't they?
oh my gosh, and I feel like as evaluators, as breeders, as feeders, everybody has such a better grasp on things and a better understanding of how to attempt to make good ones, how to attempt to select a good one, and when you get them home, how to feed and manage a good one. And that results in like that. And I know I'm blowing it up a little bit, but like that drive at Kansas City. Show me any of those animals in that drive that don't belong in that drive because there isn't one. They're all incredibly just exemplary in what they are. And if you can't get excited about where livestock is today, and you don't get excited about a drive like that, man, you need to go play some pickleball or take up golf, maybe, because you're probably just a fun hater anyway. And golf's a great sport to just have a bad day while you're having a good day, and that probably be more your speed. If you're involved in this livestock deal and that stuff didn't get you excited, oh man, you need to reevaluate a little bit because it's pretty special. And it's pretty special where it's at right now, I think. That's my soapbox. Thank you for coming. Tip your waitress.
Tipper well, 25%.
That's right. That being said, we talked about, we're kind of on the who's your daddy thing. And one of the other things that you and I will talk about, sometimes, and we'll kind of segue over here maybe into this topic a little bit that you and I talk about a lot is, what's the best one you've ever seen? What's the best one you've ever seen? And because it's easy to, see a picture of one or whatever, but to see them in
Absolutely.
person, you know, is a different ball game. And I can tell you, I thought that goat that won Kansas City was phenomenal. He was a creature. I mean, that was just that dude in a line of goats that I thought were elite. I think that's one that's special. And I will tell you that, we went down right after they slapped him and everybody was kind of talking and visiting. And I didn't get to visit with the family at all, but I did get to see that goat up close as they were headed the backdrop. Pretty special creature. And I think a pretty special goat. And that one
He
was,
was amazing.
he was
He
pretty
was
good,
just,
pretty cool.
he was
And
a freak. He
yeah,
had so much to him, and he was as nice profiling, nice to
right.
outline, and just jack necked, and he was just
One of
so
those that
cool.
you see at a backdrop and you're like, man, that dude, he's cool. He's elite. He pictures good. But to see him in person, to see the spread and the mass that guy came with and just the amount of substance in that goat, along with how he looked, I thought was pretty unique. And Matt, we were talking about, what's the best one you've ever seen? And so I'm interested to get your take in terms of what's the best one you've ever seen. And I guess we could start, we could start talking about cattle a little bit because I think we're going to talk about some cattle here in a minute anyway. what's the best heifer you've ever seen?
I tell you what, a lot of people don't know this because they think of me as just the hog guy, but like I've probably shown more cattle than I have hogs in
Mm,
my life.
yep.
But in 2005, there's a shorthorn heifer called Maggie's Mirage 301, and Alden's had her, and Tyler Alden was showing her, and I saw her at Missouri Cattlemen's. I think that's at the beginning of June. I think
Yeah,
about when I
yeah.
saw that one. And boy, she was so good. And she was pinned right across the aisle from us. And man, we were staring at her all week. And I think they brought like a black heifer or key heifer or it might have been a steer. I can't remember. And it goes with the story, but that heifer was so much of a standout at that show. I mean, she just donkey stomped them.
Yeah.
And I was so glad because we were shorthorns and shorthorn people root for each other and
Oh
things like
yeah.
that. And she goes out and wins the shorthorn deal pretty handily. And then they come back and they have her in front of the fans and have a fan right behind her blowing them. And that I think it's a steer that they're fitting, and they're fitting a steer, getting ready for the steer show right after. And I remember them spray painting that steer. And as they were doing it, that spray paint was just kind of going on her. And
Oh no.
she was a white
I was
heifer.
gonna say because she wasn't she white,
She
maybe?
was
Was she a
pure
white
white,
heifer?
pure white. And that heifer, I tell you what, all of a sudden, I think I can't remember, but I think somebody was like, "What are you doing?" Like, I might have been a dad or something like
Speaking of
that. But
Williams Luck, that's kind of a
yeah,
Williams Luck thing
well,
right there.
but here's the cool thing: like, it almost accentuated all of her good parts. It made her. It kind of sharpened all of her edges,
Mm.
made her top bigger. You could see her length of hip and her
Kind of took
hooks
a
were
little
sticking out.
black
Oh my God,
outline there,
it
like a
really
cartoon.
did. And they took her out for Grand Drive, and she just looked like something different. A judge, like he just could not stop taking his eyes off of her, and she was so good and won that thing pretty handily. And then Sullivan's ended up, I think, buying I think they bought full possession in half interest or something in her, and ended up. I think she went to a couple of national shows and did really really well there. And I know that she's one of their most prolific donors. And boy, she was so good.
We had shorthorns as well, and gosh, my whole involvement with the shorthorn deal, and I know yours too. The Alden name was just synonymous with high caliber
Oh yeah.
livestock and specifically high caliber shorthorns, and such a neat operation, such good cattle, and put out so many good ones over the years.
He's very good friends with my uncle John, and he showed a few of ours for some national shows and things over the years. And I tell you what, it's I'm always happy when they get into the backdrop because they're such a good family as well. Now, is there a steer you want to talk about, my man?
Well, I'll tell you, if we're talking about cattle, and I've seen, I've been lucky that I've got to go to some of those bigger shows over the years and just kind of as a spectator and watch. But the steer I will tell you that sticks out the most in my mind that I saw in person. And I guess we should preface that, what's the best one you've ever seen? And I guess I don't mean, on social media or on
Yeah.
Walton, but one that we've seen in person, at a show. Briley and I were in Denver in 2020. So this had been right before COVID hit, right? Kind of end of January. And we'd gone out there with a Barra, and it snowed the day we were going to go home. And so we kind of talked it out. We thought, hey, I was teaching then. So what's another day of, missing school? And we decided to stick around and watch a steer show. We get out there, and we're watching this steer show, and obviously it's Denver. You've got the three judges. You're having a good time watching. There's some high end, high caliber steers, and Geyers had a steer that year out there that wins it, Smoky steer. That I can tell you, like the minute he came in, he was he was as good a creature, I think, in terms of the fundamentals of what we're looking for, show steer wise, with some extras. I mean, just hard to pick a hole in. Super cool looking, big and stout and burly, like good bone, good legged, like we talked about earlier, good assembled. That guy was just pretty special. And I guess in terms of, for me, the more I looked at that steer, the more I thought, man, that calf's going to win this deal. Like he's pretty darn good, and he did. He ended up winning it. But I think that may be, I think I think that may be one of the most impressive steers I've seen in person. Is the Geyer steer that won Denver in 2020.
Last year, we had the opportunity to take a bunch of FFA members out to Geyer's farm and see how they kind of run and operate. And I think it was like 187 degrees on that day. And we took a bus. We took a bus 4.5 hours to get there. And the kids are like, oh my gosh, what are we doing, Mr. McCrory? But when they got there, one of his daughters was there and Dave was there and his wife. What a hard working woman she is as well. And they took us around and they were so humble, but they were so hardworking. And you could see the determination in their eyes and their actions. But they were also sincere and they didn't hold back. They shared secrets and they talked about things because, they want that next generation to do it. And it was so exciting. The funny part about that is we're in there and the whole time I realized how clean it is and how good things looked. Then afterwards, we go to a Mexican restaurant, and there was like flies in the Mexican restaurant. And I send Dave a text. I was like, "It just hit me, buddy. Like there are more flies in this Mexican restaurant. They're in your barn." And he said, "Yeah, those automatic misters are some kind of fly repellent or something like that." And
What an awesome show family.
oh
What an
my
awesome show
gosh.
family. And
And
every
they
like
help so many people
yeah,
too. It's
yeah.
not only about them; they also try to reach out, help a lot of people as well.
That's a family that has a plan every day, not just on show day.
That makes me excited because the next family I want to talk about is the Spoonster family right here out of Clarksville, Eola, Missouri. And I tell you what, uh, I am really, really good friends with the mama of that family or the dam or whatever we want to call it, right? And her name's Jessica, but I'm actually named after her dad, and her dad was,
Really?
yeah, my dad's best friend was is him. And anyway, long story short, they have Dorset ewe they got from, I believe, the Reynolds family. And I saw that thing at a county fair, and she's a Dorset ewe. Wow, that thing is an absolute creature. She's a hammer. I am in love with that one. I don't know how she could get beat. Saw her 3 weeks later. She looked even better. Saw her
Wow.
at the state fair, looked even better. And I understand, like when you're at that county fair level, you're like, man, that one's really good, but you don't know how good they are
Mm-hmm.
until you see them against the best.
That's right.
And many people don't know this about you, my man, but you're a sheep guy and you have a passion for those woolly creatures.
You
What's the
know,
best one you've seen, buddy?
we're kind of throwing out some beards and banners trivia here right off the bat, and that's I guess that is maybe one of those things that maybe today not a lot of people know about me. And is I grew up showing cattle and sheep, and we never had a hog on the place. I wasn't around hogs. We didn't show hogs. I didn't have any affiliation with hogs whatsoever, really until my adult life and started teaching ag. And so the hog deal, which is obviously the thing that probably we're the most vested in and trying to raise a few of them now. And probably the most success that my daughter had in the show ring was came at the hog side. And we were lucky enough to get to feed on and show a few good goats and a few good sheep, but certainly the hog side was the best to us. But it was, something completely foreign to me that I had to learn. And I don't hear I go on I'll get on a miniature soapbox. It's a great example that, not that we accomplished great big things, but it just goes to prove you don't have to be born into a family that's affiliated with a species or even showing
No.
livestock. And, and I'll tell you, yeah, I showed cattle, I showed sheep, usually to no avail. I was not. I never won anything. I didn't win the state fair. I didn't bring home any banners from the American Royal. My probably biggest claim to fame as a kid is I won showmanship one time at Shorehorn Junior Nationals. But I had a broken arm, and I think the judges felt sorry for me because I had I tried to tape my show stick to my cast and it didn't work. I tripped over it and fell down, so we had to cut the tape off before I went in. tells you a lot about my mentality and what I was doing. But you don't really have to be born into it. You don't have to know everything about
Nope.
everything. It's there's so many good people. And I know we got off track there. I'll get back on track, but there's so many good people, so many good families, so much information out there. If a person's willing to sit and watch and listen and look things up, that you don't have to be anybody's expert to do this stuff, and that's kind of what makes it fun. uh, I'll throw a buck out there that I saw, that the first time I saw him in person, I was just like, man, this dude, I think this dude's special. I think he's a little bit of a game changer in terms of what he can do genetically. And I think he has done that a little bit, is the freestyle buck up at Hills.
Mm.
I had a chance to go up there. We were looking at some sheep and they had the bucks in the barn. And I had a chance to see freestyle, and he just hit me hard. He's my type of sheep. Um, Cracked open, big ribbed, good bodied, like big stout pinned, um, real hamp featured, and still like gets out and moves. Joint angles are awesome. Look is real cool. And so while it may not be a sheep that somebody maybe had braced up or fit up in the show ring, that's probably my style of sheep. And when I saw him in person, he was one that hit me really hard, probably. What about hogs? We've kind of danced around the hog issue. What do you think on hogs?
Well, I tell you what, sometimes just knowing us, we're gonna get a little hog heavy. And I tell you
Oh
what,
yeah, heck yeah,
I cannot, I can't name one. So listeners, our mom and sister, whoever's listening,
yeah.
we are
Our
gonna go.
apologies to our three listeners out there.
Yes, thank you. They're like, why didn't you just call me?
We couldn't we done this in like a FaceTime? Did we have to
Yeah, yeah.
record it?
I believe it was Emily Montgomery a few
Yeah.
years ago showed a Chester
Oh yeah, the
Gill.
Chester. Yep.
And anybody who knows me, I'm kind of a two breed guy, Chester and Berkshires, and now we're kind of going out to the crossbreds, okay? To the, I think we're
Venturing
probably
out
pretty, we're
into
pretty
the wild
crazy,
side of the world a little bit.
but again, sometimes you can tell a good one's a good one. And we run a jackpot show at Troy FFA, and there's a guild out there, and she comes in, and boy, she was just so amazing and impressive, and just she was a banjo, and she was so good and so stout featured, and boy, and again, when she walked away from me, she couldn't have been more squared and stout pinned, and like great looking thing. And I was asking about her, and they said, "Yeah, we're going to Expo." And I said, "Man, that thing could win." And well, she wins overall Chester Guild at Expo, and then reserve champion at
I was going to
Summertide
say,
Conference, and
yeah,
she just was a hammer. And oh, it was so good to see. And but at the same time, sometimes you see them with those jackpots and you think they're that good, but you don't know how good they
right,
are.
right,
But
yeah.
then that was a really, really good one. And there's a Burke Gill before I even knew who Adam Beck was. And I purchased semen. I think we used a red boar called New Direction and some different things.
Oh,
And
I
every time
remember that one. I
I
remember that
taught,
one.
yep, you showed a barrow that did
Yeah,
really
yeah. We had a
well.
new direction Barra. Yeah.
And I always enjoyed talking to Adam. I was walking down. I think I was looking for you. I might have been even looking for the Montgomerys to kind of see where they at, or a couple customers or something. And I was walking by, and all of a sudden, they had this Burt Gilt that they were driving to the arena. And I was like, oh my gosh. And they had a big crew around her. Okay. And I said, that thing's amazing. And Adam's like, yeah, we like her. I said, man, good luck. Man, that thing is as good as the guilds I've ever seen. Well, she ends up winning the whole thing, and she was so good. And actually, Adam kind of got out of the Birch last year, and I called him, and I tried to buy her, and I think I was one of the contending bidders on her because boy, she was just so good. And she was a keep talking, if I am not mistaken. I want to say keep talking on a Kentucky loving, and boy, she was unbelievably stout. She was stout boned when before it was really, really taken off as far as
Hmm.
bone was getting huge, and she was good and just so much. She was so big backed, so much ribbed and center body to her. She was just so darn good. And then I have to tell you that JoJo guilt of yours, she was pretty good. Tell
Joe.
everybody the story about that guilt.
Margot. Oh, Margot. Um, that was a guilt, and she never really got anything accomplished. Great big. She was, I think, reserve cross maybe there
Springfield.
at CPS. and ended up selling her to Weissingers. I think at the end of that deal, she was a JoJo gilt that we bought from Jesse Heimer in the sale, and I loved her. Briley and I went over there, kind of bad weather, it was bad enough weather we weren't in school.
Yeah.
And I told Briley, I said, you want to, and it's not just right down the road. I mean, from our house over to Heimer's is, about 3 hours.
3.5.
Yeah. And so on good roads, which there's not really any good roads that get you there, it's kind of North Missouri up and down. It's kind of like a roller coaster. Well, imagine
It's
a roller
a 2-lane roller coaster.
Yeah. And usually some farm implements, or somebody's got cows out or something. We live up in the sticks. And so it's a goat path to get over there. And so we head over there and we're looking at hogs, and, a little bit, some of those places, and we talked about it on the sheep deal, there's so many good ones that you got to kind of write yourself some notes, and I had this gilt wrote down, and she was the number one gilt I had wrote down. And there were some really good hogs that came out of that sale. And
what'd she bring? Like 8,000? What'd she bring for you, buddy?
Well, that's why we owned her, is because she was a one bid deal. I don't know if Jesse wants me telling this story or not, but I actually text Boots. I got on her there, started the horse race, and hit her, opening bid, thinking, well, she's going to light up here in a minute. Because the note I still have the note. I have the note on my phone. Buy this one if you can. Can't afford
her. Yep.
Can't afford her, probably. And thought she was unique. And she was skinny. I mean, she was skinny. She was a little beat up. She wasn't maybe the shiniest one in there, but just super cool, and just so like cracked open and big legged and still good looking. Anyway, it gets about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And, that's still relatively early for pig sales. And you know how that goes. You're trying to see where you're at, and you're nodding off in your easy chair and all that stuff. Or if you're like I am, you just eventually fall asleep and lose them anyway. But it gets to be 10, 11 o'clock. I text Boots, and I'm sure he probably had other pressing matters, at that point. And I'm like, man, I realize, whatever the opening bid was, $350 or whatever it was, I'm not going to get hurt here, but am I screwing this up? Like, what did I miss? And he's like, I don't know, man. I thought she was a nice skill. I'm like, okay. We end up getting her. She's a one bid deal. Bought her just whatever the opening bid was. Got her home. I think started eating, and went to town. And we took her. The funny part of that deal is that she never won a jackpot show. We took her. We hauled her some of those early deals. She'd win her class. Might get a piece of the cross deal. Maybe, I think she was like reserve one time at a jackpot, but she was just so unique and so different in terms of what was out there that year, that it was I think folks didn't know what to do with her. Heck, I was feeding on her and I didn't know what to do with her.
Well, I tell you what, I mentioned earlier how we kind of went together on the change up boar, and how that kind of happened. And when I brought that change up boar up to you, and you started showing me all the pigs that you had on feed and things like that, and you brought her out, I mean, I was like a cartoon character. My jaw dropped. It was unreal.
You were probably more excited about her than I was, just because you know how that goes.
I had never seen legs that big. I had never seen feet that large. Toes were perfect. Like, here's the deal about her. She was so wide, massive, big topped, that you would have had to have a 3-foot long neck to really go along with the rest of her. Okay. Yep. To make her really bounce out. So anyway, what happened was, some people thought she was jammed up, but part of that was because that white on the crest of her neck kind of creeped up a little bit.
And that was probably one of the things
to tell where she's kind of started there or ended there.
Yep.
But she was so good. And then you take her to Springfield. Didn't do as well as you like, but everybody liked her, and everybody noticed her.
Ends up being the high selling gilt, high selling cross gilt, I would say, I guess, instead. But
what'd she bring? $9,000 or what?
I think I can't remember now exactly what she did bring. I know that Nate bought her, took her up there, and I know that she's produced a boar or two, and has had some pigs that have sold incredibly well. Well, sold well enough I can never get one bought out of her. I know that
Yeah,
because I've always kind of wanted to try to sneak a gilt out of there. But
yeah,
the funny thing is, they're usually a little out of my price range, and so no, that was one that was she was fun to feed on because no matter
yeah.
what you threw at her, she just
It
kept
just
rolling.
stuck.
It's nice to have one once in a while that just fed, like a hammer. Just everything you did dropped and went and fit like it was supposed to. And she was a fun one.
Yeah, I could see it. I could definitely see it. But she was really good. She's one that I'll never forget. And I'd say the last one, like just sort of different and things of what I've seen is that Statement Day boar that old Max Heimer drove at Louisville that year. He was so unique for a red hog.
I
He was
agree, and
so he was
he's on my list as well.
he was so opened up. He was so square, big legged, and moderate in his build. And I just thought he was exactly what that breed needed
Hmm.
at that time. And
I
guess
agree.
what? I wasn't wrong because I think a lot of other people thought the same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. From what he brought, I think we weren't the only ones that liked him. But when I saw that guy, he hit me. He was one that I thought was a game changer within that breed. I thought he was incredibly unique. And I
Mm-hmm.
think no matter what color you paint them, no matter where you put their ears on their skull, I think that's one that I think when you saw that one in person, left an impression. And as a red hog, I will remember probably for a long time. There's there's so many of those good ones that we can talk about, and we'll save some of that for future episodes.
For sure.
And I would encourage you, all three of our listeners, um, reach out to us on social media or just shoot us a text, um, because we're interested to know, what's the best one you've seen.
What? There's this HBO show, I believe, called Vikings. And, I just think those guys look pretty cool. So I have my Viking headgear on today. And at the
I
same
like it.
time, we have to realize something because since it's close to Halloween, there's a guy right across from me on the TV monitor here that is kind of famous for some Halloween costumes. Brian, you want to tell us about a couple of them?
I I don't know why we started this podcast this close to Halloween because inevitably the Halloween costumes are probably going to come up. Uh, you know, Halloween kind of a fun holiday to celebrate and get to dress up a little bit and opportunity to experiment a little bit with some costumes and do some fun stuff. And I got to I was I've been Alan from The Hangover, which is probably the obvious one. When you look at me,
That's probably my favorite one of yours.
that's one that and
Didn't you have Carlos strapped
I
on to
did.
your
I
belly
did. I
too?
had Carlos. I had the whole deal. The Allen one was a big the Hangover deals. That was a big hit. One year I was Post Malone. Um,
No
uh,
kidding.
yeah, a chubby Post Malone. I
Hey,
was.
those laser removal, tattoo removal,
It
that
is.
worked out pretty well.
It is coming very well. Painful but worth it. Um, Probably if you know me or you followed social media, the one that probably people get the most excited about is the Rip costume.
For
Um,
sure.
the Rip costume, and I guess the big claim to fame there is obviously Yellowstone, pretty popular, and if you live in a backwoods, rural, off in the sticks part of the world like I do, Yellowstone pretty popular show, obviously, and so it was a pretty easy jump there, dressed up as Rip. Somehow or another, somebody puts that on social media, okay, and I would suppose you would say it went viral. Okay. And I was getting messages and calls and texts and Snapchats from people that I hadn't talked to in a long time that had seen it. It made it all the way to the official Yellowstone page.
No way.
I'm not making this up.
That's something I didn't know about you.
And the guy that plays Jimmy on the show messaged me and followed me on Instagram. Um, And so
I like how it's Jimmy. It's not like
I
Kevin
don't know his
Costner
I should know his
or
name. I should
Beth
know
or
I
anything
should
like
look it
that.
up real quick.
But
I
it's
should know his
no, but
name.
it's
The
Jimmy. Like,
esteemed actor who portrays Jimmy in
yeah.
Yellowstone for all
Well,
of you Yellowstone fans.
he has grown on me over the years.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah. I thought maybe it would be you know, Beth or somebody that would reach out. As it turns out, it was Jimmy
Sure.
Williams Luck again. But that one was popular. That one got it was a big hit. That one's hard to top. And so today, well, you've got on your Viking hat, which I'm very fond of, by the way. I'm a little jealous
Thank
that
you.
I don't have that.
It
Um,
might be a every podcast signing thing.
hey, I think it's a good look for you.
Well,
So
to me, you look like the most interesting man alive. So
surprisingly, I was the most interesting man in the world one
I
year.
know. I think that you really, really pulled that one off really well, my friend.
That one was maybe one of my favorites. That one was the good one. It took a while to get all the, and much like when we fit Barras up, I had to go to the wash rack and get all the gray paint out of my hair and beard. Today, I wouldn't need to
Today you'd
paint
be
my
just
beard quite
fine.
as much, but and in the younger days, my beard was a little darker hue, a little darker shade.
Absolutely.
Hey, it's time for our sales spotlight of the week. Matt, what do you got for us?
When you get to opportunity to really promote friends of yours, there's nothing better. And Meyer Cow Company is based out of Bowling Green, Missouri, and they're having a sale this week called Performance in the Pasture. And when you think about starting with good cattle and good stock, you got to have good cows.
Oh yeah.
And Brock and Michelle Meyer, they know what it takes. And they have reached out and they've gone to Montana to Express, and they have really formulated a great herd based upon balance, based upon numbers, and based upon being able to withstand just being in the pasture
Oh yeah.
and be able
Just
to function. And
good
it's
functional cattle that have got some bells and whistles and extras.
and I have had the pleasure over the last few years to kind of see them evolve. They've done that through looking up what great cows are out there, finding those cows, identifying them, and then bringing them back into the herd and really doing a really good job of making sure they can flush those cows. Good job of putting embryos in recips and making sure that they breed to the right bulls. And I tell you what, this guy right here, Brock Meyer, he really puts his time in. He makes sure that he identifies what bulls are out there, what their EPDs are, but also ask, are they going to be functional? He's put together a really good string here, and I can't wait to talk about it.
Man, we had a chance to look through the catalog, Matt. You and I both, and I think there's some exciting lots in there. Tell us what are you thinking? What are you liking? What are you watching in this sale?
I had the opportunity to talk to Brock a little bit. When you look at numbers of that lot one bull, they are phenomenal. And this guy right here, he's going to be a high calving ease bull. His yearling weight and performance numbers are off the charts, but his marbling is so high. And I tell you what, this is a no holes type of a bull that you can't go wrong. I tell you what, a lot of people I think are really going to be in on this one. So you better kind of pay attention.
Well, and the neat thing about that bull too is that he's not just numbers. He's going to give you obviously some genetic advantage, but he's a front pasture bull too. He's one that you can go to the coffee shop and kind of say, "Yep, that's my new bull. Looks pretty good, doesn't he?"
Lot two, they say, is also really exceptional. And the bull that I kind of really gravitate toward is I like my Angus bulls to be really big bodied, really, really deep flanked. And that's that lot three bull. And this guy is so stout. He is so big hipped. And I tell you what, Brock and I were talking. We think he's gonna be a fan favorite sale night. And I think people should kind of look in on that one. These guys have had national champions. They've had a fifth overall at the junior nationals. They've had a fourth overall at junior nationals the year after. And then they had champion junior and champion open at Reno just a couple of years ago. And when you think about that, being able to perform not only in the pasture, but also take that into the show arena,
Yeah.
that's next level. And
Well, I think
some
that's
of
what
those
so many people are trying to do, and Brock and Michelle have done such a good job with.
the reason he's able to put these cows or these bulls out there is because the cow power behind these things is so impressive. And he's really sad to get rid of one of these things. And I bet you can tell me which one that one is.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, it didn't take me long, and I didn't have a chance. I wish I could go see him in person, and we've been busy. But man, looking through the catalog, the one that I guess instantly is intriguing to me is lot 28, and that's the Meyer Rosemary 1086 female. I think that that is an awesome opportunity if somebody's wanting to elevate their cow herd, elevate their female side of what they do. I think you do it in one purchase right there. That is an awesome Angus female. I think that she is so good, just from a silhouette standpoint, from an
Oh,
elegance
absolutely.
standpoint, in terms of her front one third. When you study that girl's build and design, I think those are the ones we're trying to make. Then when you get to looking at just cow power and body and just production value, it surprises me that they're letting loose on one like that. But what an opportunity in terms of that sale and somebody to go in and sneak one out of there that is obviously an elite, high caliber donor prospect.
Yeah, and that's what he was talking about. He says it was so hard, and he says it's probably the best one he's ever let go off the place.
Man, it had to have been a tough discussion to have, but man, if you're looking for one, I'd jump in there and start taking advantage of maybe getting an elite female like that in my operation.
And I've got to see some of these commercial bred heifers they're offering, and they're offering about 8 of them, and they are
Mm.
really fantastic. And if you're just looking for some good commercial cows
Good,
that you
functional,
don't,
practical. You bet.
yeah, you don't have to worry about him because he's already done the work for you.
Yeah.
He's done the research. He's put the cows together. He's done the research on calving ease on the bull side. If you take care of these things and watch them, you should have no problems. And I tell you what, you're going to have some really good luck with them. And I think there's some really unique opportunities to go and get you some commercial cows that you can go back and make some money. And I think they're going to be really profitable for you.
Matt, I agree. And looking through that catalog, I was so impressed. Not just phenotypically, but genetically as well, and the pedigrees on those creatures. If I was those guys, I'd be excited about the upcoming sale. Tell our listeners, Matt, some of the details. When is the sale? Where is it at? How can they get a hold of those folks to inquire about those lots?
Well, I'd love to tell you that. The sale's in Bowling Green, Missouri, and it's at their farm, and you can find that their sale book online. If you are not able to make it to the sale, they can see it that night on BV auctions,
Hmm.
and the sale starts at 6:30 p.m. But I highly recommend you giving Brock or Michelle a call on sale day or before and talk through some of these lots to see if they can help you and steer you in a direction that can help you, whether
Oh,
you're
yeah.
breeding 5 to 10 heifers or if you're going out and trying to breed 40 cows. They have some advice for you. They know the way that you need to go. I just root for those type of people, and
Mm-hmm.
I wish them all the best of luck in their sale coming up this Friday. Now, if you're an operation that is having an upcoming sale and you'd like to market that with us, just give my good buddy Brian Williams or myself a snap or DM us. And we'd love to highlight your sale in the upcoming weeks. And what we can do for you is we could do a number of different things. We could talk about several lots or just mention it, but we'd love to help you out. Just reach out to us if you'd like to kind of go that route. We love talking livestock. We love meeting new people, and we love promoting the industry that we love so much. Reach out to us if you will.
Exactly. Right on. Get a hold of us. We want to help out if we can.
And one of the things we'd like to know from our listeners is something that we feel very strongly about. What's your playlist? And so
Oh, yeah.
throughout our podcast, we want to feature one or two playlists every single episode
What are you
and keep
listening
it kind
to
of light and
going down
fun.
the
And
road? What are you listening to in the barn when you're cleaning pens? What gets you going? What keeps you
absolutely.
fired up? What's that playlist that's going on in your head when you're taking that bear to the grand drive?
Then I think about that. I have two playlists. I have a playlist when I'm at the barn alone, and I have a playlist that my sons can listen
you've
to
got you've
when
got
they're at the
younger
barn.
ears in your barn than I
I
do.
do. I do. We have some kids that can take things the wrong way. Let's just say that. So, but when I'm alone, man, I tell you what, some Notorious B.I.G.,
Mm.
some Jay Z, Big Pimpin'.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot get enough Snoop Dogg in my
Yep.
life.
Preach on.
What, two kind of outliers that they're probably only connected by Willie Nelson, if you get that joke. But old cross Canadian ragweed,
Oh yeah.
CCR and
Yeah,
Pat
yeah.
Green.
Yeah,
I tell
yeah.
you what, if I could just have a day shoveling manure, cleaning out barns and washing pigs, listening to those, that's what that would be on there. Now when my boys are around, it's different. It's Luke Combs, it's Luke Bryan, a little bit of Garth Brooks in there.
Oh,
We got some Taylor Swift. We're Travis Kelsey fans, my man, and
that's right. Doesn't hurt to be a Swifty right now.
yeah, absolutely. And it kind of varies a little bit about the other things. My son really likes Eminem, but there's only so much Eminem that you can play still. So that's kind of what's in our deal. What's in your playlist, my man?
Oh man, you know, some of that we're showing our age a little bit, obviously,
Yeah.
here's what I'll tell you, young people. I'm speaking directly to the young folks right now. The classics never go out of style, and
Oh no.
you know, stop your mumble rap for a minute and go back and listen to a little NWA or Jay Z. Go check out some of Snoop Dogg's early stuff. You can't get better than that. That's where it
It's
all
so
that's where
good.
it all comes from. And man, that era of that music, and it might surprise you when you look at you and I, you probably don't go, man, I bet there's a guy that listens to Jay-Z. I bet there's a guy, you know, that tried to go to an NWA concert one time in high school. But that's the truth. Um, I'll tell you, man, I'm a sucker for some of that stuff. And we talked about Eminem, man. Shout out to Eminem, native Missourian. I know he got famous in
From
Michigan
Detroit,
as a
right? Yeah.
Detroit guy, but born in St. Joseph, Missouri. I'll
I did not know
never
that.
let that one go. He's a Missourian. I don't care what anybody else says. Um, and then man, I'm kind of I'm getting to that age, Matt. I'm getting to that age. A little bit of dad rock in there too. Like I like a little dad rock on my playlist. You know, some ACDC, uh,
Oh yeah,
a
baby.
little Guns N' Roses. You know,
Ooh.
I'm kind of an '80s kid and kind of come up on that stuff, and a little bit of Def Leppard. Doesn't hurt anything. Um, but I'll also
Little
tell you
Aerosmith
a little
probably is
Aerosmith,
in. Ooh.
even a little Rolling Stones, man.
Oh,
Even a
me
little,
too. Their live album, 40
oh,
Licks,
geez. You
good
know,
stuff.
but I'll also say this. Um, I was pretty, it was a struggle for me to like country music for a while here. I'm not big on like bling jeans and tight t-shirt wearing guys telling me about their pontoon boat. Just doesn't float, just doesn't go with me, I guess. Doesn't get me jazzed up, you know. But man, uh, Giovanni and the Hired Guns, check that out if you haven't checked it out. There's some good stuff there. Tyler Childers, man, I'm okay with
Oh,
that. I'm way in on that stuff. And so there's some guys that are starting to really do some cool stuff there. But yeah, when it comes down to it, Eminem, Jay Z, NWA, and if that stuff, Dropkick Murphys shipping up to Boston, hey, well, we got a little Irish in us, and
oh yeah, we do.
you can't if you got a little of that going on and a little bit of the Irish blood in you, you can't listen to that one and not get excited about it. And so, yeah, we're old school. Probably in my barn, my daughter would tell you a lot of times. She was forced to listen to all that stuff even at a young age. Um, Parenting advice, people. Um, my daughter probably was listening to that stuff at an age where she shouldn't have been. But she's got a dad that was probably a pretty marginal parent, and so she got to listen to some of that stuff. Um,
Not Joni, not Joni.
no, she had half of the parentage was pretty marginal,
Thank
and
you, Joni, for all you did for her.
yes, and so. But now she's a college kid, and she knows all these cool songs and all these old school artists and knows all the so now there's value to that. She'll send me a
So
TikTok.
is there still that early 90s or late 90s, early 2000s? There's still what the kids call bops.
Oh, like pop music, like
Well, no, I don't know. Like, are they still getting down to Fat Joe and Jay-Z and
Pitbull,
all those? Yeah. Oh man.
Pitbull,
Oh
Miami,
yeah.
Havana,
Yeah. Who?
305. That's all I know. That's the only Pitbull song I know. But I think that's
I
also
was
every Pitbull song.
I love me some Luda too. You
Oh
can't beat
man,
Luda. Yeah, he was
ludicrous.
good. We were looking for reasons or ways to close this thing out. And
Mhm.
every week we want to close this with a kind of inspiring message. And I'll be just totally just rip the band-aid off and be totally raw here. I'm a person that, struggles every once in a while with mental health, and one that really understands that we have to look out for each other. And I found Brian, and I have the most supportive person in the world, that my wife, that kind of looks after me, and I love her to death, and I appreciate all she does. And we have to kind of look out for each other, and we are looking out for you as well. So one of those things that we'd like to do is we'd like to end with a positive note. So every week we're going to kind of end with an inspiration, quote or something that will help you get through the week and make you think a little bit. And Brian has a really good one that I saw the other day on Judging Pro that I think is perfect for our first week.
Matt, I would agree 100% with you. It doesn't matter whether you're involved in the livestock industry, if you're teaching, if you're the town dog catcher, if you're a lawyer, if you're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, there's going to be good days and there's going to be days that are harder. And all of us, I don't care who you are, probably are on a journey that's going to have ups and downs. And, I think back, one of my favorite, I guess, speeches that I ever heard in a Grand Drive speech is one year we were out at Denver and Will Winter was judging the Barras and he gave the big "Be Nice" speech that you don't really know um,
Yeah.
everybody's story. And I'm obviously I'm paraphrasing here, but I'd encourage you go look that up, man. They made T-shirts out of that. People have got posters of because it was a great speech. It was a great message, and I guess it's something that Matt and I believe a lot in terms of, you know, there's going to be negative days. There's going to be days that you are elbows deep in freezing hog water and you're just trying to get stuff patched up before everything freezes solid. And those aren't the fun days necessarily.
Yep.
But that a lot of times opens your eyes up to the really good stuff and makes you appreciate the victories that inevitably come your way as well.
And it's
And
our job as humans just to lift each other up, whether it's
hell,
that person
heck yeah.
in the drive-through window. If you can make that person smile or
Yeah,
checking
yeah,
out of the gas station
yeah.
or whatever it is, we're in this together.
You
And
just never know what battle somebody's fighting. You just don't.
absolutely,
And it's easy
absolutely.
to be negative. I'm the world's worst at, and ask anybody that knows me. I think of myself as a glass is half full type of guy. Most people that know me would not agree with that statement. They
Yeah,
think I'm incredibly negative. I would tell you probably I'm a realist, which means
yeah,
when I see a catastrophe coming, I know that there's a catastrophe coming. You mentioned that, every week we throw something up on Judge and Pro, and I'm glad you like this one. It was one that I guess in my mind, I think everybody has that time when you feel a little bit alone or you don't know, you know, who have I got in my corner? And
absolutely.
and we put one up last week or week before, and it just says this: your circle should want to see you win. Your circle should push you every day, but your circle should encourage your growth. If you've got that, then you've got people in your corner. You've got the right circle, and man, they're going to lift you up, and you're gonna achieve something. Something good is coming your way, and I think it's important to keep that in perspective. You're never alone. You're never that far down. Somebody's always got your back. You just may not see it in the moment.
I couldn't agree more. And welcome everybody to our circle, the
That's
Beards
right.
and Banner Circle. And we
It
look
is
forward
an
to talking.
odd circle to be in, but you're in it now.
Yeah, whether you like it or not,
That's
baby.
right. You're a part of the family now.
Yep. Okay.
Let's hope
So
William's luck doesn't strike
yeah, well,
you as bad.
I have found that it doesn't really rub off. It's
Good.
kind of a,
That's
I think it's a dominant trait
yeah.
hid way down in there that you got. But I think that's what it is. But boy, that was fun, man. And I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
next week. And
Heck
we
yeah.
got some, we have some great things to talk about already. And I'm really looking forward to it, man. That was fun. And have a great week. And
Don't forget to give
I,
us a follow on social media. Look for us. Reach out when you've got good ideas for segments. You've got questions you want answered and an honest answer, because even if it's not popular, We're going to tell you what we think. Or, hey, we're going to put it out there. We want to know what you're listening to in the barn. We're always looking for some good jams.
All right. So snap us, DM us, reach out to us. We'd love to know you're listening. Have a great week. Look after each other and look after your neighbors.
That's right. Don't forget, be nice.